What's going on, guys? A few days ago, I saw this tweet saying, crazy to think this Buffalo Sabres roster never made the playoffs. And you take a quick look at it, there obviously are some really good players there. Vander Kane, Ryan O'Reilly on the first line, Eichel, Reinhart on the second. They got Allmark and net, but you look at the defense, it's kind of trash still. Bottom six really isn't the greatest either, but it did have me thinking. The Buffalo Sabres have the longest playoff drought in the NHL at 13 seasons. What if they just never made a trade, actually held on to all their draft picks? What would that team look like right now? Could it be a playoff team? So first thing I want to show you guys, just in case you somehow forgot, we are in the playoffs. Buffalo hasn't played some hockey in a little bit. This is what their team looked like to end the season. So obviously, Tage Thompson there is the best forward. They got Alex Tuch back for Jack Eichel. Jeff Skinner, they actually made a pretty big trade for. You look through, some good players. The depth's okay. Defensively, they look a lot better after making that trade for Byram. Obviously, Dahlin's a stud. Owen Power, first overall pick, looks very solid. Goaltending-wise, Luukkonen was actually playing pretty well for them in, the final month or so. So, not a bad team. I thought they actually might make the playoffs this year after how well they finished last season. Wasn't the case. But next year, we'll take a look at their team if they had never made a trade. This is actually kind of crazy, guys. So the Buffalo Sabres team that did make the playoffs this year is actually 90 overall in game. A lot of teams are honestly higher rated than they should be. The Red Wings are 91. I don't know how they're that high rated, the same as the Leafs. But anyway, I just want to kind of show you guys so we can compare real life Buffalo Sabres. They're 90 overall. And now if you compare that to the no trade team, they're actually lower rated. They're 89 overall. Thing is, I believe this team is better, so I think that just shows you the overall calculation probably isn't, the most accurate thing ever. And now next year, guys, I'll show you what the no-trade Buffalo Sabres team looks like. As I mentioned, I actually think they're better than the current team, even though they were one overall lower. So starting off here, you actually got Brandon Hagel, first line left wing. A lot of people actually didn't realize, but he was drafted by the Sabres back in the 6th round of 2016. Now, they actually never signed him. It was the Chicago Blackhawks who did. So in this video, not only is it a no-trade team, it's also a keep all your good picks team, because there's a couple other guys they let go that they definitely should have held on to. Now, moving over to the first line center, Jack Eichel. I think this is an obvious one. Second overall pick, big time trade there to Vegas. You got Sam Reinhart next, who just became an even better player in Florida. Finished the season second in goals. He was also second overall pick by the Sabres back in 2014, the year before Eichel. And again, you look at his point production here. Once he went to Florida, just became an even better player, especially this year, putting up 50+ goals. Absolutely unreal. And that first line gets a +3 chem. Second line here, guys, you got Jack Quinn, who of course they drafted. They get to keep him. Same with Dylan Cousins. And then you've actually got Michelli here on the second line left wing. So this is a weird one. He was drafted by the Arizona Coyotes, but the draft pick used to take him was traded by the Sabres. So if they never made a trade, this draft pick would have been theirs. So they actually get to keep him. And it works the other way too. There's a lot of players that Buffalo drafted after acquiring the draft pick via trade. A couple defensemen, for instance, Zadorov, Jake McCabe. Both those guys got taken with traded draft picks, so they're not going to be on the team. You look at the third line here, you still get Casey Middlestat. Evan Rodriguez is here. He was signed by the Buffalo Sabres out of college. They, of course, still get Zach Benson. Fourth line, you got Victor Olofsson. Gergensen's still on the team. And Tyson Jost here's kind of a funny one. They actually picked him up off waivers. So since they didn't trade for him, I allowed it. I felt like, they could still pick him up off waivers even if they're not making any trades. Now, defensively here, they are a little bit weaker, which I think might be why they have the lower overall. So you got Owen Power, Dahlin on the top pair. So I think that's very solid. Tyler Myers here is still on the team, of course. He was taken 12th overall. You got him playing with Samuelson there, another draft pick by the Sabres. Bottom pairing, Ristolainen never gets moved. And then Connor Clifton here, they actually signed as a free agent this summer. So again, would still be on the team. No chemistry boost for the defense, but also no negatives. In terms of the goaltending, Linus Allmark, again, they actually let him go to free agency for some reason. I guess they didn't see him winning a Vezina trophy. And then backing him up is actually Kochetkov. So this is probably one of the craziest trades I found while researching this video. I'm sure most of you guys remember the Buffalo Sabres made a trade to the Carolina Hurricanes to get Jeff Skinner. But what you might not realize is the picks they traded over turned into not only Kochetkov, but also Alexander Nikishin, who is one of the best prospects playing outside the NHL right now. Potentially the #1 defensive prospect, not in the NHL. So it's pretty crazy they gave up him and Kochetkov. Plus, I think Cliff Poo for Jeff Skinner. I mean, Jeff Skinner obviously a good player, but Nikishin 1-for-1 definitely has more value, and then Kochetkov even one of the best young goalies in the league. So that was kind of a funny trade to see. Obviously, of course, hindsight is 2020, but honestly, there was a lot of moves like that. And before I show you guys the AHL team and some other players that didn't make the team, I'll first show you the special teams. Power play 1 there, I think, is absolutely stacked. They get a +5. Power play 2 even looks really solid. And look at the PK here. I feel like it's pretty solid. Both Hagel and Rodriguez have decent defensive stats. In terms of the defensemen as well, most of them are, pretty solid defensively. So again, overall, even though this team's lower rated, I do think they're a better team on paper. Let me know in the comment section whether or not you think this team's going to make the playoffs before I start the simulation. Also, too, guys, as I mentioned, I want to show you some leftover players here in the AHL. So Pontus Holmberg here would be on the Sabres. Joel Armia was a draft pick by the Buffalo Sabres. Alex Nylander, of course. Grigorenko. Thomas Bordeleau, this one's kind of interesting. So the draft pick used to take him by the San Jose Sharks was originally the Buffalo Sabres pick. They actually traded that for the JJ Peterka pick. So I feel like Buffalo actually won this one. Bordelot, though, is still a pretty solid young player, so didn't turn out too bad. Brendan Lemieux would be here again, Buffalo Sabres draft pick. There might be some guys that are just AHL players I didn't move. Jacob Bryson, Nikishin, like I said, that's probably the biggest trade they wish they could have back. Piszczek, Ryan Johnson. You look at the goaltending here. Johansson would be the starter. Cal Peterson would be back up in the AHL. So definitely cool to look at. I thought, too, with this team, definitely got to give the C back to Eichel and A to Reinhart there. These guys are coming back, trying to lead this Buffalo Sabres team to the playoffs for the first time in 13 years. And I almost forgot, guys, but with undoing the trades, I made sure to send all the players back to the original team. So you can see Alex Tuck here is with the Vegas Golden Knights. On St. Louis, you got Tage Thompson, etc. And lastly here, guys, before we get started with the sim, I'll quickly show you what all the ratings look like. So we've got 94 offense, 86 defense, 89 goaltending. You guys can see Eichel there, back in the Buffalo Sabres blue and gold. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, for the trade deadline now with an even record, 28, 28, and 8. If you look at the division here, you'll see we have 64 points, tied with the Canadiens, and we're currently actually fighting with the Blue Jackets there for the last wildcard spot. They are tied with us with 64 points. They do have one game in hand, but we're right there fighting for a spot. So I'd say doing a little bit better than Buffalo Sabres did this season. I was actually looking at it too. I was wondering if maybe, we weren't playing too well because of the coach. It was not the case. Jack Eichel currently has 55 and 64, so he's looking pretty good here back in Buffalo. And like I was saying, guys, I checked the head coach. You can see A- overall. Definitely, cannot blame him. The associate coach is A+ power play. Assistant has A+ PK. So everything you're looking for, honestly. The only downside is our staff chemistry really isn't the greatest. But, you can't really fix that by firing guys. So unfortunately, have to rock it as is. And we'll see what happens here last month and a half. It's going to be close. All right, guys, so there's 4 games left in the season. I wanted to pause the simulation. As you can see, we've actually been playing pretty well. We've got a positive record now, 37, 32, and 9 after having a really good March, and we're currently in a playoff spot there with 83 points. We're actually one back the centers for the other wildcard spot. You look at the Metro, though, the Devils are fighting with us as well, so it's going to be close. Surprisingly, the Maple Leafs, second last in the Atlantic Division. Did not expect to see that, but I just want to sim, these last couple of games, see what happens. And after beating both the Stars and the Capitals, guys, there's 2 games left, still holding on to a wild card spot. Florida Panthers 10-1 win, Tampa Bay 5-3. The Sabres here win the last 5 games of the season to finish 41, 32, and 9, and not only secure a playoff spot, but actually a divisional spot there. So we're going to be playing the Boston Bruins in round 1. What's pretty crazy too is, I'll show you guys quickly here, I think I should have it recorded. We were 7-14 or something to start the season. So huge turnaround here. Kind of Oilers-esque, I guess you could say, who of course, went on to make the Stanley Cup final. Eichel, very solid year, 74 and 82. Take a look and see how everybody else did on this team. I doubt Sam Reinhart had 57 goals. Yeah, he only had 31 there. So not as good as he did in real life, but 72 points. You definitely cannot complain. Dylan Cousins had good numbers, 62. Michelli, 61. Hagel, 58. Quinn, 57. He's up to an 84 now. I actually wonder, Cousins here, yeah, he's also up in rating to an 87. Dahlin there at 45. Middlestat, 35. You definitely want a bit more from him. Power there at 34. He went up in rating by 1. Benson here, he actually stayed the same, but still time to grow. So yeah, overall, I think everyone performed pretty well. This is with 7 scoring set to medium, shot frequency at high. Allmark, 912 save percentage, 278 goals against. Those are actually some really good numbers. Kochkov, even better numbers there as the backup. In terms of the AHL team, just kind of curious. Asplund, Holmberg, both at 60 plus. Greg Ranko, Nikishin, 51. Like I said, Sabres fans, let me know. Would you like to, have that trade back? Him and Kochkov instead of Skinner. The AHL team actually won their division. All right. Before we get started with the playoffs, guys, I forgot to actually check the standings. Oilers win the President's Trophy. They were tied in points with the Rangers. Islanders up high. Curious to see. In the entire NHL, he finished 13th, so not too bad. And last in the league, just like in real life, was the San Jose Sharks. So, relatively accurate there. And we actually had the 5th best goals against. So I think, Buffalo Sabres getting Linus Ullmark back was definitely a big addition to this team. And as I mentioned, we got the Boston Bruins here in round 1. Real life, they made it to round 2, lost the Florida Panthers. We'll see if Buffalo can maybe upset them here. So the first 2 games, guys, are in Boston. And we get a 5-3 loss and a 3-2 OT win. All right, so 1-1 there through 2. Next 2 games in Buffalo. Unfortunately, they're both losses. So have to win 3 straight here, down 3-1. And unfortunately, we're out in 5. So even though it was a first-round exit to the Bruins, still, the no-trade team did make the playoffs and actually finished 3rd place in the Atlantic. Much better than the real-life Buffalo Sabres, who finished 6th place in the Atlantic, did make the playoffs. So I think, in retrospect, that the Buffalo Sabres just never made a trade, they'd actually be in a better spot right now and maybe, not have a 13-season playoff drought. And this is kind of funny, guys. After finishing 1st place in the division, the AHL team actually lost in 4 there to the Senators in round 1. Unbelievable. And check this out, guys. The playoffs are now complete, and the Oilers actually won the Stanley Cup. Obviously, they got like a 50-50 chance to do that in real life. Should have actually a video on that coming out for you guys very soon. But next, we'll take a look at the awards and see maybe if a Buffalo Sabres won something. Jack Eichel there, over a point per game in the playoffs. So, you know, as much as people like to think he hated Buffalo, he showed up for them in this sim. You got Hagel there, point per game. After that, though, everyone kind of fell off. Take a look here at all mark stats. Ooh, below 900. So definitely did not do as good for us in the playoffs as they did in the regular season. And now take a look here, guys, at the awards. Oilers there winning the Stanley Cup and the President's Trophy, so kind of a clean sweep for them. Francis Campbell, they actually beat the Boston Bruins there in the Stanley Cup Finals, so at least we lost to the best team in the East. Individual there, McDavid, another Art Rush trophy, got the Hart again. Adam Fox, James Norris, Pavelski, Lady Bing. Hopefully he doesn't retire. I'd like to see him have, you know, one more chance at a cup. Marco Rossi, Calder, not Bedard. You got Henrique Conn Smythe. Wow, that's surprising. Shesterkin, Vezina, William Jennings, Ferraro, Bill Masterton, Flames coach Jack Adams. I feel like we definitely deserved it, probably. That's okay. Kopitar, Selke, McDavid, Ted Lindsay, and then Matthews, Maurice Richard. I think, you know, the coach that finally gets Buffalo into the playoffs after this long of a drought, shooing the Jack Adams, but, you know, it's fine. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. If you did, leave that thumbs up. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, hit the sub button down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.